On December 11, 2023, everything seemed normal to outsiders. Lauren Johansson and her boyfriend Bryson Rivers were sitting in a bar in Nashville, having a drink and watching a football game. No one could have guessed that this evening would be the beginning of a nightmare. Just hours later, Lauren would be lying seriously injured and helpless in a car, and Bryson would be arrested for assault. It was the beginning of a tragedy that would end fatally months later. Lauren was born on October 30th, 2001 in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, a quiet coastal town with oak-lined streets, old houses, and ocean views. For tourists, it was a vacation spot. For Lauren, it was home. She grew up with two older sisters, both of whom had health issues. Lauren learned responsibility early on, helping her parents with caregiving and developing a deep compassion for those who were weaker than her. Her love for animals was evident from an early age. Whether it was a dog, a cat, or an injured bird, Lauren cared for every living creature. Later, she volunteered regularly at an animal shelter and dreamed of one day starting her own rescue center. At the same time, she developed a desire to become a nurse, a profession in which she could help people in the same way. In high school, she met Bryson, popular, athletic, ambitious. At first, their relationship seemed harmonious, but soon the first warning signs appeared. Bryson became controlling, jealous, manipulative. Friends noticed that Lauren was changing. She became quieter, canceled plans, made excuses, but she stayed with him. Out of fear, out of hope, out of love. Outwardly, Lauren remained the helpful, friendly young woman who loved animals and cared about others. But those around her noticed that she was changing. She canceled appointments more often, evaded questions about Bryson, and defended his behavior even when it was clearly hurting her. Her friends were worried, but every time they brought it up, Lauren reassured them. She said Bryson was just stressed and needed her support. Over time, his controlling behavior intensified. He wanted to know who she was talking to, what she had been doing all day, how she was dressing. He kept a close eye on all her encounters with other men. Even harmless words were viewed with suspicion. His jealousy toward male classmates or colleagues was particularly noticeable. Lauren began to withdraw more and more to avoid conflict. Bryson knew how to make her feel guilty. When Lauren tried to set boundaries, he portrayed her as cold or ungrateful. He said he loved her and only wanted what was best for her, but his love was full of conditions. The emotional dependence grew. Bryson alternated between declarations of love and accusations, between tenderness and control. It became difficult for Lauren to see reality. One day, after an argument, Bryson grabbed Lauren by the arm, firmly, roughly, frighteningly. It was the first time he had physically assaulted her. But she played it down. She told her friend that it had been a misunderstanding, that he hadn't meant it. It had just been a moment of overwhelm. She justified his behavior and stayed with him. Her father, Robert, noticed the change. He tried to talk to Lauren, but she shut him out. She told him to trust her, that everything was fine. But Robert had a bad feeling. He sensed that Bryson was not who he claimed to be. The trip to Nashville in December 2023 was supposed to be a break for both of them. Bryson was on leave from the military for a few days, and Lauren was on vacation. They wanted to spend time together, see the sights, and get away from everyday life. But beneath the surface, things were simmering. The tension was palpable, even though Lauren tried to cover it up. On the evening of December 11th, 2023, Lauren and Bryson went to a bar in Nashville. Bryson was eager to watch an important football game, and Lauren accompanied him even though she seemed tired. At first, everything seemed calm. They sat at a small table, ordered drinks, and talked quietly. Lauren smiled, but her eyes looked exhausted. When she briefly went to the restroom and asked a waiter a question, things began to escalate. Bryson watched the scene with growing suspicion. As soon as Lauren returned, he accused her of deliberately flirting with the waiter. He raised his voice and accused her of being unfaithful, out of nowhere. Lauren tried to calm him down, but Bryson became increasingly louder. Guests in the bar began to turn around. They left the bar shortly afterwards. The argument continued in the car. Bryson locked the doors and took Lauren's cell phone so she couldn't contact anyone. His anger boiled over. He yelled at her, insulted her, and finally hit her. Lauren fought back, tried to escape, hit the windows, honked the horn. But there was no one around who could help. Bryson drove off to a remote area. He ignored Lauren's pleas and threatened to kill her. The situation escalated further in a deserted parking lot. Lauren tried to reach into her bag, where she was carrying a small can of pepper spray, but Bryson snatched the bag from her. His brutality was indescribable. In the middle of the attack, Bryson received a call from his mother. Lauren seized the moment and screamed for help. The mother immediately realized the seriousness of the situation and alerted the police, even though she didn't know where her son was. When the police contacted Lauren's father, Robert, he was able to tell them the current location of Lauren's cell phone thanks to a family app. When the police found the vehicle, they heard Lauren's screams. They immediately opened the door. Lauren was seriously injured, her face covered in bruises. Bryson sat next to her, motionless. He was arrested at the scene. Lauren was taken to the hospital. Lauren received immediate medical attention. Her injuries were severe: bruises, hematomas, a bloodshot eye, scratches on her neck, and bruised ribs. She could barely speak. Nevertheless, she initially refused to press charges. She told the police that she didn't want to ruin Bryson's future. He was just going through a difficult phase. In prison, Bryson continued to try to influence her. Despite a restraining order, he called her through indirect means. He promised to change, asked for forgiveness, and begged her not to press charges. Lauren, emotionally exhausted and deeply unsettled, finally agreed. Her statement was toned down, a move that significantly altered the case against Bryson. The original charges were not immediately pursued, although there was an audio recording of his conversation with his mother, medical reports, and witness statements. Bryson was released on $250,000 bail. Lauren's family was shocked. They knew what he was capable of. A few months later, the bail was even reduced to $150,000. Bryson's mother paid. He was allowed to return to Nashville with an electronic ankle bracelet. In theory, the device was supposed to monitor him, but serious errors occurred. An official responsible for fitting the ankle bracelet had not been informed of the strict conditions. Bryson himself claimed that he was allowed to move freely around the city. No one checked the information. The ankle bracelet was configured incorrectly. Important restrictions on movement, such as the ban on contact with Lauren, were not taken into account. Shortly afterwards, the device was no longer being charged. Warning signals were ignored. No one informed the police. The trail to Bryson was lost, and no one reacted. Lauren's father received an automatic voice message days later. The device was offline and Bryson's whereabouts were unknown. It was a shock for Robert Johansson. He knew his daughter was in danger, and this time, no one would be able to intervene in time. On July 2, 2024, Bryson was officially reported missing, but by that time, he had already disappeared. His ankle bracelet had not transmitted a signal for days. The police reacted late, much too late. On the morning of July 3rd, Robert tried again to reach Lauren. She did not answer the phone. Instead, he received a text message from her number. The content was unusual, cold, distant, not in his daughter's tone. Robert knew immediately that she hadn't written this message. Alarmed, he called Lauren's sister, with whom she lived. The sister found that the apartment door was open. Lauren's car was gone. The surveillance cameras in the driveway had been turned off. Everything pointed to something terrible having happened. Robert reported his daughter missing immediately, but even though there were now concrete indications of a dangerous situation, the police response was delayed again. It was over 24 hours before an active search for Lauren's vehicle began. Meanwhile, the family tried to take matters into their own hands. With the help of a tracking app, they finally managed to locate Lauren's car. It was in a deserted parking lot near an old cemetery, lonely, surrounded by dense forest. When the police and Robert arrived at the scene, a man suddenly ran out of the car and disappeared into the woods. It was Bryson Rivers. A chase was immediately launched, but it was unsuccessful. The terrain was too confusing, and Bryson escaped into the darkness of the forest, driven by the worst possible feeling. Robert opened the car door. Lauren's lifeless body lay on the back seat, wrapped in garbage bags and a blanket. Her face was badly disfigured. Even her father could hardly recognize her. The police immediately began securing the crime scene. Traces of blood in the vehicle testified to a brutal struggle. Everything indicated that Lauren had been severely abused in the car before she died. That same night, a large-scale search for Bryson began. Emergency services combed the surrounding area with helicopters, search dogs, and thermal imaging cameras. 9 hours later, he was discovered deep in the forest. The officers surrounded him, and Bryson allowed himself to be arrested without resistance. His expression remained cold, no remorse, no emotion. After his arrest, Bryson made a disturbing confession. He stated that he had intercepted Lauren early in the morning of July 3rd as she was leaving the house alone. He knew she didn't want anything to do with him anymore. That's what drove him crazy. He waited near her apartment. When she arrived, he approached her and confronted her. When she tried to get away, he grabbed her roughly and dragged her into his car. Once inside, he locked the doors and drove off. His goal was to finally have a clarifying conversation, but instead an argument escalated. Lauren insulted him and threatened to go to the police again. That's when he lost control. First he yelled at her, then he hit her, again and again. At some point she lost consciousness. Bryson claimed he tried to revive her, but when she remained motionless, he decided to hide her, hoping to deal with the traces later. His statement was peppered with contradictory and derogatory remarks about Lauren. He spoke of her fault, of her arrogance, and of how she had provoked him. Not once did he mention grief, no remorse. Meanwhile, the public was horrified, not only by the crime itself, but also by the failure of the system. How was it possible that a man facing such serious charges was ever released? Why wasn't the GPS ankle bracelet monitored properly? Why wasn't Lauren's family warned in time? These questions now dominated the headlines. The justice system came under intense pressure. Lauren's parents demanded a comprehensive investigation, gave interviews, and repeatedly emphasized that their daughter could still be alive if the system had worked. The funeral service took place a few days later in Ocean Springs. Hundreds of people attended. Friends, neighbors, fellow students, even strangers who were deeply moved by Lauren's fate. Amidst the white flowers, candles, and photos, a picture of her emerged, keeping alive the memory of a young woman who was full of compassion and joie de vivre. While Bryson's trial was still ongoing, the family established a foundation in Lauren's name. Its purpose is to support animal shelters, promote rescue operations, and give a voice to young women in difficult relationships. The first donations were received shortly after its establishment. Bryson Rivers' trial has been set for June 25, 2025. He is charged with first-degree murder, theft of a vehicle, and tampering with evidence. His defense team has announced that he will present his version of events. To date, the trial has not been concluded. Lauren's family is once again sitting in the waiting room of justice, day after day, staring at the man who killed their daughter and destroyed their lives. The public is following every twist and turn, but a verdict is still pending. And with each day that the trial drags on, anger grows toward a system that knows the rules but rarely protects in time.